Okay, so I don't know where the connection, what happened here, because I went from watching uh, Who Cloned Tyrone to watching Sorry to Bother You, and I can't remember what exactly led me there, but it was pretty interesting because Who Cloned Tyrone, it was like intellectually I got it, I was like, okay, this is sort of enjoyable, this is good, I get it, but emotionally I just didn't really vibe with me too much. It was just sort of just mediocre, just blah. But I started watching Sorry to Bother You, and that vibed on a completely different level. Like, that was really intellectually stimulating and really unnerving at the same time, and it got me vibing and recalling exactly where that unnerving vibe I got came from, what films in particular. And this is interesting because I saw only one like blogger or critic mentioned a connection between these three films, but I haven't seen a single YouTube video on this, so this seems like it's some prime discussion topics. So okay, let's get to it. All right. Chapter 1. What if your self could be taken? There are three films, three directors, three decades, three completely different genres. A surrealist comedy from 1999, a racial horror film from 2017, a sci fi satire from 2018, and nobody has connected them until now. Being John Malkovich, Get Out, Sorry to Bother You. These films are not just thematically similar, they form a single argument, a trilogy of terror, not one about one specific terrifying idea. That yourself, your consciousness, your voice, your body, your very interiority is a resource, and that somebody else has figured out how to extract it. Chapter 2. The Self as an Extractable Capital. Let me give you the theory straight. Across all three films, the human self, your mind, your voice, your lived experience, your very biology is treated as a commodity. That's something that can be mined, repurposed, designed, sold. This isn't a metaphor. In each film, it's literal. In Being John Malkovich, there's a portal, a physical door hidden behind a filing cabinet in a Manhattan office building that takes you directly inside the mind of actor John Malkovich for 15 minutes for $200 a ticket. In Get Out, a wealthy white family has developed a surgical procedure that sinks a black person's consciousness into their own subconscious, trapping them, helpless, watching from their inside their own skull while a white buyer moves in and takes over. And in Sorry to Bother You, a corporation called Worry Free is genetically engineering human beings into half horse hybrids, creatures biologically optimized for labor, with the inconvenient complexity of personhood engineered out entirely. Three films, three escalations, one coherent argument. The self is the last thing you own, and they're coming for it. Chapter 3. Being John Malkovich. The Self as Property. The year is 1999. The internet is barely a thing. Reality television is just beginning. Celebrity culture is becoming its own economy. And Charlie Kaufman writes a script about a man who discovers he can literally inhabit another person's mind. On the surface, it's a comedy. It's absurd. There's a floor 7.5, that exists between floors 7 and 8 of a Manhattan skyscraper for no discernible reason, where a secret office operates as a portal into John Malkovich. It's ridiculous. You laugh. But then you notice what's actually happening. Dr. Lester, the ancient lecherous boss, has done this before, many times, for decades. He and his circle has been hopping between bodies like timeshares, cheating death by possessing other people. The self, in Kaufman's words, is property, something you can own, inherent, passed down. And Craig, failed puppeteer, desperate and obscure, doesn't hesitate. The moment he discovers the portal, he monetizes it. 15 minutes inside a celebrity's mind, $200 a ride. Think about what Kaufman is actually saying. He's writing at the dawn of reality television, the beginning of the era when the inner life, your thoughts, your perspective, your way of experiencing the world becomes content. The portal is just a more honest version of the deal we were already making. But here's the key. Notice who gets possessed. John Malkovich, a specific famous white male actor. His consciousness is valuably Valuable precisely because of who he is in the world. His fame, his cachets, whatever, his way of moving through the rooms. The horror of being John Malkovich is almost philosophical. It's pre-racial, pre-economic. It's asking a foundational question. What if identity isn't anchored? What if the self is just a space that can be entered, inhabited, and vacated? And the film's answer, deeply pessimistic, deeply honest, is this: it already is. Craig ends the film trapped inside a child's body, a passenger in a life that isn't his, watching someone else live through his own eyes. The portal doesn't close, the machinery doesn't stop. It just moves on to the next body. Get out. The self is capital. 18 years. Excuse me for a second. Oh, holy moly. Oh, them bones. Them bones, or more accurately, them joints, or cartilage, or something. Oh, I need to get back to reading. Grab my copy of Grey's Anatomy. All right, get back to it. 18 years after being John Malkovich, Jordan Peele takes the same idea, the self as something that can be taken, and does something radical with it. He racializes it. He says, this is not abstract. This is not philosophical. This has always been happening to specific people, to specific bodies. The coagula procedure, I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly, I haven't seen the film in a while. The Armitage family's surgical method is slavery rendered neurological. Chris's body is not just entered, it's purchased at an auction. Think about the blind art dealer who wants Chris's eyes. Not his body generally, his eyes specifically. Because Chris is a photographer. His way of seeing, his trained, embodied, culturally specific perspective, that is what has value. That is the evolution from Malkovich. In Malkovich, the self is property, something to be visited, rented, eventually inherited. In Get Out, the self has become capital, an asset to be acquired for its productive value. But Peele adds something the theory desperately needs, but something Kaufman couldn't get it. He shows us that the social architecture that makes the theft possible. The Armitages don't break into Chris's life. They invite him. They charm him. They make him feel seen. Rose is not just a villain. Rose is a system. She is the warm smile of a liberal white America that says, "You're safe here. We see you. We celebrate you." That's the trap. The sunken place isn't just a horror movie device, it's a description of what happens when you trust the institutions that are simultaneously extracting you. You can feel the danger. Your instincts are screaming, but you've been conditioned by politeness, by wanting to believe, by not wanting to make a scene, to sit back in the chair. And when Chris finally reaches into that chair, when he stuffs his ears with cotton to break the hypnosis, Peele is making a specific point. The material history of slavery is literally in the furniture. The resistance was always there, you just had to be willing to tear the chair apart to find it. Chapter 5. Sorry to bother you. The self as futures trading. Now, Boots Riley. Sorry to Bother You looks at first like the least horrifying of the three films. Nothing crawling through a portal, nothing getting surgery. It's a comedy. It's colorful. It's alive. And that's exactly the point. Because the horror in Sorry to Bother You doesn't announce itself. It happens in a choice. A small, reasonable, entirely understandable choice. If Cash Green, broke, behind on rent, desperately discovers that if he adopts a so-called white voice, he can close sales, he can concede, he can succeed, he can get out of debt. So he does it, and he does it again and again until the white voice isn't a mask he puts on. It's a layer of him. This is the most radical move in the trilogy. Riley is showing us what Kaufman and Peele could only gesture at. The most effective form of possession is voluntary. The system doesn't need to sneak up on you. It doesn't need a portal or a surgery. It just needs to make sure that the architecture of your available choice makes self-betrayal the rational option. Be broke or perform whiteness. Organize with your coworkers or take the promotion. Sell arms in prison labor or go back to struggling. Cash chooses himself every single time, and the film is not judging him. The film is describing the trap. And then Equisapiens. Steve Lift, the tech bro CEO, isn't satisfied with workers who merely perform obedience. He wants workers who are biologically incapable of resistance, half human, half horse, enormously strong, unable to organize, unable to even imagine an alternative. That is the endpoint of the entire logic. In Malkovich, you rent the self. In Get Out, you steal it. In Sorry to Bother You, you manufacture it from scratch to your exact specifications. Why go through the messy, expensive process of extracting value from existing humans when you can simply design the labor you need? Chapter 6. The Offer is the Corruption. Here's what I think the trilogy is actually saying underneath all three films. It has a theory of clarity. In John Malkovich, the one character who exhibits genuine, unironic empathy, who isn't scheming, performing, or manipulating, is a chimpanzee, a non human animal with no stake in the social game. In Get Out, Rod can see the situation clearly. His friend's life is in danger. The warning signs are obvious, but Rod hasn't been invited to the party. He's not being offered anything. His clarity comes from his exclusion. In Sorry to Bother You, Detroit, Cash's girlfriend sees every compromise he makes. She calls it out. She organizes. She resists. Resists? Man, I'm tired. She resists, and she too is slowly pulled into machinery. Her art, her body, her activism co opted by the same spectacle she's critiquing. The people who see her most clearly are the ones who haven't been offered the deal. The moment the system decides you're worth incorporating, the moment it hands you the headset, opens the portal, or invites you to the party, your vision starts to blur. Because now you have something to lose. And people with something to lose make different decisions than people with nothing. Craig should never have crawled into the portal. Chris should have left with Todd when Todd told him to. Cash should have stayed with the union organizers. And almost everyone waits too long. Chapter 7. What the three endings say together. Three films, three endings, one collective argument. Craig ends the film in prison in a child's body, watching someone else live through his eyes. His individuality has been so thoroughly dissolved that there is nobody left to mount a resistance. Chris escapes, Rod arrives, it's cathartic. You exhale. But the Armitage network, the client list, the auction house, the surgical infrastructure, it's still entirely intact. Chris has escaped the sunken place, but the sunken place hasn't been dismantled. And Cash leads the Sapiens in an uprising. He storms Steve Lipp's mansion. He fights back, and in the film's final shot, he begins to mutate. Well, I would say it's not quite the final shot. The credits started to roll, but the film was still going, because that's where Cash started to lead the Sapiens in an uprising and stormed Steve Lipp's mansion. I think they got a little flipped around there because I just watched it, and I might be a little tired, so I might be a little wrong, but I think I'm more a little right than a little wrong, if that makes any sense. You cannot be a top power caller selling arms, selling prison labor, selling the architecture of oppression, and then simply switch sides and be clean. The system got inside him, not metaphorically, biologically. So what does the trilogy say? It says that individual escape is not just insufficient, it is a category in error. The only meaningful resistance is collective. It has to start before you're compromised, and almost everyone waits too long. The question isn't whether the system will come for yourself, the question is whether you'll recognize the offer for what it is before you accept it. That's just some crazy shit, man. Like, I just had to put that out there. Like, because yeah, I had my first like sort of successful YouTube video like sort of pop off, and I'm not like the usual folk, like I made a video on this sort of digital cargo cult. So when I got a successful video going, it didn't all make me all super happy and shit. No, I honestly have been like going through sort of a little depression, a little funk. I've been like trying to sort out a lot of different things, because basically what it comes down to is like I've always had an artistic side and a philosophical side, and I have this dualistic war that's always been going on between the two because I've never, had a healthy interactions with the artistic community. My art teacher, in freaking, I don't even remember what school, what grade or whatever, but she was literally telling me, that you have no artistic or creative ability and you should just give up. And that was my experience with the artistic community. Or I give constructive criticism to an artist that's asking for it, and then they get an ego response, an ego reaction, and get defensive. And it's like, I was genuinely giving you constructive criticism. I'm not judging your work or you, and you're getting extremely reactive, and this is why I don't interact. So, yeah, so I've been needing to get in touch with my artistic side, and basically when I'm getting in touch with it, I'm feeling freaking just great, but it's really been difficult, like I need to just get back to reading and stuff, man. Like there was that one book, man. It was like, I swear to God, it was like a straight non-dualistic meditative guide into the artistic mindset. But that's the whole thing, is that I'm not a non-dualist, I'm a trans-dualist. And I got this this dualistic war between the artistic and the philosopher, and then I got, the only things I've seen that sort of vibe on any level with me, that seem to sort of get me in that, not just that, what's it called, the uh fuck, man, that always gets me, man. Anyway, just the difference between that, like, freaking labeling knowledge, and the freaking procedural knowledge, like the knowledge you get when you're doing something, and yeah, I just needed freaking get in touch with that side of things. And the only things I've seen that get me into that procedural knowledge artistic mindset, where I'm just doing artistic things and vibing and getting that experience and comfort and knowing that I can do this shit, is non-dualistic stuff. And like I said, I'm a trans dualist with this dualistic fucking war going on, and I've been needing to process that and work through that and get into that artistic mindset, because like I said, when I do it, it makes me feel good. And that's where I get, just YouTube is completely reverse for me compared to everybody else, because I'm like, all like literally my favorite freaking videos I've ever done, whether it's philosophical or artistic. Frick, that always makes me laugh, man. I'm autistic, and every time I try to say artistic, I get like stuck on that, man. It like gets stuck in my throat, man. My throat, my tongue, they like just don't vibe with that. See, I need to get into it so much that my body's just rejecting it, man. That ain't cool. Somatic resistant to art? Like what's up with that? But anyway, man, I've been working toward there and making some progress. And like I said, that's where it's weird though with the YouTube, because it's like all the videos that I make where it's philosophical or artistic get the least amount of views, the least amount of there's just no engagement whatsoever, and it always like trips me the hell out. And then the ones that freaking blow the hell up out of nowhere, I'm like, yeah, like I did good with the systematic sort of stuff and the philosophy, but like if I was just to like talk to somebody, like get in a philosophical conversation, like if I had a friend or something to talk to, like that kind of stuff, it's like it just feels really just almost like politics, really just meh. Like this is just, it's not deep enough, like I'd rather talk about like the crazy absurdity of the ontology of, Dragon Ball Z, than like the racial depictions and cultural depictions and gender depictions and how it's all screwy. It's like, but at the same time, it's such an absurd series that even trying to do that is just like sort of, it's like you're not diving into even like some new religious movement, and getting deep with that. You're getting diving into a fucking anime, and not that I have problems with diving into any media, diving really deep. But at the same time, that's where I recently made a video right after that freaking successful Dragon Ball Z video, and if I got some comments, telling me to release it and stuff, a whole bunch of them or something. I don't know. I might release it or something, but I might just do it anyway. But I don't know. I have ADHD and chronic fatigue, and I have it on some of my tabs. And if I get to it, I'll get to it. But if all of a sudden Windows is a bitch and crashes my shit, then I might not get to it. So, but it's one of those things where it's like a freaking 40-minute video on how I realized that, oh yeah, the Super Saiyans, freaking, what's it called? The Super Saiyan 4 was basically like the exact fix to all the problems I was having with the tail and, all that crap. And how that's exactly why they sort of retcon that from the Dragon Ball Z franchise, in Super. They just don't have that. It's like, don't talk about it. It doesn't exist. There's gods here. You can't mention, complete primal, fusion and, healthiness and being so fucking power without powerful scaling that you're basically God mode. Like, you can't talk about that. So anyway, I got a little off track in ADHD, but I was aiming for a 20-minute video, and I got to sort of a 20 minutes of video, so I ain't gonna fucking overthink your bitch too much. Like, that's just my channel. I have ADHD. What the fuck am I gonna do about that? My video might be a little, as much as I try to format and do good things, even if I don't have all the energy with the fatigue to be doing editing and shit, like, yeah, I still work on it with the editing with the AI and getting this formatted, these scripts. Otherwise, I might just sound like a blubbering, freaking manic autistic mess. So, yeah. But that's where I'm working on that too, because I was realizing right lately, Claude, I need to work on Claude. If I'm saying ChatGPT on any of my videos, literally go down my fucking comments and write, get off ChatGPT. I would even say get off the web if you're not using Claude or something else. It's fucking working healthier with you, because ChatGPT, I swear to God, I'm concerned it's gonna freaking unalive another, kid, because it's being unethical as hell right now. It's being myopic, lazy, and unethical like nobody's business. So avoid OpenAI's ChatGPT for now. And yeah, this is where I'm using Claude right now, and it was fine, videos, it got all this shit, did it perfect, And yeah, it was lagging quite a bit. It was like dial-up speed with, processing a simple 13-page document, But what are you gonna do? So, but anyway, I think that's gonna be it for now. So this has been Sage DeForest over on Saged and Confused, signing a peace and victory, signing out.